Hello everyone, and welcome to the Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. Have you ever felt like you just didn't fit in? I'm sure it happens to the best of us. Hopefully, we eventually find peace in our individuality and embrace those little discomforts in life. Naturally, easier said than done in some cases, but it's one thing to feel like you don't fit in, another for people to deliberately make you feel that way. And then there's something else, one that maybe we haven't all experienced, one where you find yourself somewhere, and what you have is more than a feeling, it's a fact. You don't belong there. And where exactly is there? For some, it's a place that's never existed again. For others, a mysterious road. Curious? Well, good, because we're going to explore them all here tonight. So, let's get started, shall we? Eight years ago, my dad refurbished an old 1800s wardrobe and put it on my mom's side of the bedroom. 2 nights later, she started complaining that it was eerie, gave her a bad feeling. A week after that, it started opening itself in the middle of the night, and she saw a man inside that talked to her. Dad didn't believe her, so the wardrobe stayed, and things got worse. The house began to stink. The air was damp in my parents' room. Not knowing where the smell came from, they started looking for mold, but couldn't find any. Instead, they just cleaned and sprayed air fresheners. 3 months later, the activities worsened, and the whole house was affected. The doors would unlock on their own. Cupboards would open, and the cups that my mom drank from would always be broken when she woke up. This scared her, so she decided to sell the wardrobe. 2 old people bought it a week later, but we don't know where it ended up. Also, when Dad refurbished it, he found a panel on the bottom. It revealed a hidden red box covered in dust. Inside was an old cufflink, a Swedish love letter, and a strand of horsehair. Obviously, they tried to find the owner, but they didn't have any luck, and in the end, they put it back in the wardrobe. This isn't fiction. It genuinely happened. I experienced things firsthand, but nowhere near as much as my mother. I don't have any pictures of the wardrobe or the items, but I could possibly find the eBay listing on the Wayback Machine. I'll let you guys know if I have any luck. In 2012, I was sitting in the living room with my sibling when we heard someone walking upstairs. We turned off the television, went to the bottom of the stairs, and listened as the footsteps laced back and forth. Frightened, I reached for the landline to dial 911, and I yelled out my intentions to the supposed intruder. After one ring, I panicked and hung up. The footsteps had grown louder, like someone was actually coming down the stairs. But no one was there. We were frozen, looking directly at the staircase. There was just nobody on it. Yet somehow, the footsteps continued until finally passing right by us and into the next room. We were too scared to move. All we could do was wait. Suddenly, the sound stopped, and we heard a loud scratching sound directly beneath our feet. It sounded like something was tearing apart the basement ceiling. Just then, the phone rang with a private number. The police department wanted to know why I called 911, so I lied, said that it was the baby. They still wanted to send a cop as precaution, but no one ever showed up. Our parents returned shortly after, but we didn't tell them what happened until a couple of years later. We've never been able to figure out exactly what we experienced. I keep waking up at 3:33 a.m., and I also regularly notice the clock at 3:33 p.m., whether it's when I'm about to get off of work or just randomly checking my phone on a weekend. It's not always the time either. Recently, I've been seeing it in other places as well, and it's starting to freak me out. It happened this morning when I was telling my dad about all of this. When we hung up, our call time was 33 minutes, 33 seconds. 5 times within the last few months, I've woken up to the sound of someone yelling at 3:33 a.m. It always feels like I'm trying to yell something back, but I can never remember what I was trying to say. I live with my mom, my sister, and my stepdad. I usually get up at 5 every morning, while they sleep until 6 or 7. They've always been asleep when these incidents occurred. It started last November, and I think this morning was my 5th experience since then. The first few times, I thought it was a coincidence, but it's getting harder to believe that. When I woke up, my cat immediately leapt onto my chest, got under the blanket, and laid completely still. I felt like I was being watched, and I think he did too. My room is on the 2nd floor, next to the bathroom, which is directly across the hall from my mom's room. All the doors are normally left open, and this allows the bathroom mirror to create a portal with my mom's mirror. I know that's not a good thing to do, so I try to keep the bathroom door closed, especially at night. But it's always open when I wake up. My grandpa is a medium. I'm talking to him tonight, but I'm terrified of what I might learn. Update, January 19th, 2023. I talked to Grandpa on the phone last night since he lives in another state. He asked if I was wearing the crystal that he gave me and was surprised to hear I wasn't. Honestly, I've never had much faith in them, but I might be changing my mind. Next, he tuned in to see what he could sense, and he spoke to the spirits he normally communicates with. He personally found nothing to be concerned about, though my great-grandpa said that he would check in on me that night. Considering the man passed away before I was born, I was a bit skeptical. But then, after the phone call, I was talking to my dad in the living room when I saw movement in the next room. My dad is also very in tune with things around him. He asked if someone was in the sunroom. I didn't so much see someone as I felt someone. Dad and I went into the sunroom. Upon approaching the doorway, a cold chill blew past us. The hair on our arms stood straight up. I hated that feeling. Dad walked in and asked me to describe what I felt. I sensed a tall male that I'd never met, tall enough to hit his head on the sunroom's doorframe. Dad laughed and said it was probably great-grandpa checking in on me. He was 6'2". I didn't feel unwelcome in the space, but I didn't step inside of it either. Whoever was in there was unfamiliar, but also warm in a way that I can't really describe. When I walked away, I felt eyes on me, so I put on my shoes and said bye to my dad. The whole encounter has me very freaked out. I feel like I've opened a part of my brain that I'm not sure I want opened. Now it's too late. We just moved into a new house 3 months ago. It's in a pretty nice suburb, but it gets creepy at night when the neighbors turn off their outside lights before going to bed. I used to go out to the back patio to smoke, but it's the spookiest place of all. It's totally wide open, with low visibility. I often hear weird animal noises, wolves howling in the forest. Even though it's louder, I started smoking on the front porch instead. I try not to wake my children or husband. The first time I heard someone whistling was a few weeks ago. It was nighttime. My husband had just run to the gas station, which takes about 7 minutes. The neighbors hadn't gone to bed yet, but I heard a whistle, like when you're trying to get someone's attention. It sounded alarmingly close. I looked back in the house. My husband wasn't home yet, and there was no sign of anyone outside. I was a bit freaked out, so I went back inside. Later, I told my husband, but he shrugged it off. Just now, I went out back to the patio, and I heard it again. This time, it was 2 a.m. All of the neighbors' lights were off. Not a soul was moving. The only sound I heard was a faint knocking, like a table rocking in the wind, except it wasn't windy. Then I heard squeaking and wondered if there were raccoons in my neighbor's trash. But then there was another quick whistle, just as I headed back in. It was still close, but further away than the last. With how close it sounded, I should have been able to see whoever was doing it. But there was no sign of movement. All the neighbors' lights were off. I was literally shaking as I went inside. It's creepy, like someone is doing this to me. I went upstairs to look out from a higher window, and I still didn't see anything. I don't get it. On December 29th, 2022, I was traveling from Santa Barbara to a small town in the middle of Nevada. Pending how late it was, I'd either stop for the night or continue towards home. There were 4 people in the car, and 3 of us saw a lady with a pale white face and dark, scraggly hair extending past her shoulders. She was wearing normal-looking, clean clothes. But the thing that freaked us out was the fact that she had no face. The 3 of us who saw her are 100% sure that she did not have a face. It was almost 6 a.m. The sun hadn't risen yet. Suddenly, the fog began closing in, and we started seeing weird road signs that made no sense. They appeared more and more frequently, until they were only 5 feet apart. This might be related to the faceless woman, or maybe it wasn't. I don't remember the actual road, so I'm not sure if those signs were in our world, or if we were in theirs. I'm sorry there isn't much detail, but I'm sure I wasn't asleep. I was far too anxious to sleep, and we were only a few minutes away from our Airbnb. In college, my best friend and I frequently went from Alabama to Atlanta, Georgia, to shop and visit Six Flags. One time, we were driving back after midnight, and we'd just left Noonan, Georgia on I-85 when we got hungry. It's a long stretch of nothing out there. So we just turned off at the next exit when we saw a Wendy's sign. We went across the bridge, but we didn't see a Wendy's, so we kept driving. We lost track of time while talking for 20 minutes, and that's when we realized there was no restaurant out there. The road suddenly bent to the right, came to a stop at a T intersection. The sign said I-85 was to the right, so that's the direction we went. We were planning to go get food at the next exit, but 5 minutes down the road, we saw an empty gas station and Wendy's. We also needed gas, so we went there first. And another vehicle pulled up at the gas pump across from ours. An old man got out, froze, and stared at me in silent horror as I pumped gas. He managed to finish his business before me and left quickly. My soul shivered, but I filled the tank. I pulled into the Wendy's drive-thru. The server sounded like a tired robot and also stared at us like an unblinking zombie. We got our food and couldn't wait to leave, but just before driving off, I looked at the gas station, and the same creepy man was back in the same spot. He was staring at us, completely silent and still. We drove off quickly, following a sign towards the interstate, but eventually it felt like we'd been driving for too long without finding it. We decided to turn back and retrace our route to Wendy's. It wasn't long at all before we reached the place where it should be, but it was gone, and so was the gas station. This time, we turned left at the T intersection, and we made it to the interstate just fine. We ate our ghost Wendy's in silence. We were halfway home before anyone had the gumption to talk about what had happened. Today, I was walking in the park while it was very windy and raining. In the northwest corner, there's a path leading to a pedestrian crossing where two roads meet. That's where I was going when a woman startled me. She was suddenly so close that I assumed I simply hadn't noticed her. She looked to be in her mid-20s, average height. She wore a light blue outfit with a woolen hat. She was walking very slowly despite the poor weather conditions and the fact that it was only 50 degrees out there. I was slightly unsettled and embarrassed for being caught off guard. So I walked parallel with the path to avoid getting too close. I stalled for a bit, expecting her to gain some distance, but when I looked up again, she was nowhere to be seen. I looked around, but no one was there. And the traffic was quite busy. There wasn't even anyone similar enough that I could have mistaken her appearance. No one was wearing a light blue outfit with a hat. She didn't pass me. She didn't turn back. The park is roughly a mile long and over a quarter mile wide. It was daytime, with very few people around. She wasn't wearing a coat, but her eyes were dark. I'll never forget the slow, creepy way she walked. I know I saw a real person. I looked right at her. It wasn't a corner of the eye thing. Could I have missed something? I want to say that she was a ghost, but it could have just been a real person. The period of time from when I first saw her to when she vanished is very strange. If she was a real person, where did she go so fast? There was at least 50 feet of open space to the nearest cover. I was sitting on my bed with my computer, watching a movie when suddenly my Alexa activated, listening in from the opposite direction of my bed. My headphones are connected to the computer, so there couldn't have been anything that triggered it. I took my headphones out immediately and listened. My My mom had her show paused in the living room, and I could hear her in the kitchen making toast. It's not unusual for her to make toast before she goes to bed. Anyway, my Alexa has activated for some reason, and I can tell that she's listening to something. She's deactivated after about 30 seconds of listening, and I want to ask her to turn the lights off. She kept saying my light isn't responding, to check its power supply. I got a little freaked out and used my computer light to see. Since it wasn't too bright, I couldn't see much, but something moved. I scrambled out of my bed into the light switch. It wasn't on. I flicked it on, and it didn't work. I did it over and over, and it refused to work. I couldn't leave my room without a mask because my parents had COVID. My mask was not on the door handle. I took the wooden sword next to the door, and I held it in my hands as I flicked the light up and down repeatedly. Slowly, fast. It didn't work. When it finally turned on, I was shaking to no end. There was nothing there. I grabbed my phone, which was on the floor somehow, turned on the flash. Looking around, there was nothing. Not a single trace of someone or something in the room, except my Xbox controller on the floor, knocked off of its charger. It was late, so I didn't sleep that night. I kept my phone and wooden sword next to me, under the covers, held tight in my hands. I ruled out the possibility of an intruder because me and my mom are home all the time. My dad is too because it's Christmas break and he's got COVID. No one could possibly get in without being seen in my small house. I've had more than one encounter with odd occurrences in this same house, but this by far the scariest. I don't know if this is the right place to ask about this, but I'm really scared. So I think I astral projected, but in a very scary way, not intentional. I fell asleep for a short nap. When I fell asleep, I was watching a video, a gamer. It was a live stream and he hadn't yet started the game when I fell asleep, so I knew nothing about it, especially not what it looked like. But in this dream, I could see the TV. I was standing at the foot of my bed, staring at myself. I heard my dog whimpering and walking in and out of the room. Then I could hear these voices that sounded muffled, I guess. I don't know, they sounded far away, yet very close. I don't know how to explain it. Then I heard these noises around the house, like creaking and things being moved around. I was home alone, and our house never creaks. I was so scared I kept trying to wake up, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't open my eyes. Every once in a while, I'd get one eye open, and when I did, I'd flip it to where I was seeing from my own perception, like out of my own eyes. Then they'd just shut, like when you're super tired and you can't keep your eyes open. When they'd shut again, I'd be seeing myself from the edge of the bed again. Then I'd try to open them and nothing. Tried to move, nothing. This went on for a long time. Then I remembered once that if you're experiencing sleep paralysis, you can repeat stuff. I'm not really a religious person, but because I was freaking petrified, I tried it. Saying things like, "This is a home of God. You're not welcome here." When I said it in my head, I got these chilling goosebumps, and each time I got it, the goosebumps got colder and colder, more intense. After doing that a few times, I was finally able to wake up. What could this mean? I'm so scared, and I don't really want to go home. A little backstory. I've had nightmares every night since I've lived in this home. 4 years now. Nights I've slept away from home, I don't. I don't know a huge amount about ghost lights. I was hoping someone could explain it a bit better to me. Yesterday afternoon, my partner was asleep. I got home from work early and was pottering around, washing up, etc. And I heard a very strange noise. The best way I can describe it is like a dog clearing its throat. A big dog, like a guttural kind of choke or hack. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but it sounded huge and right behind me. We have a kitten, but I've never heard anything like that come from it. Needless to say, there was nothing behind me. Then, last night, roughly 5:30 a.m., this light comes up the stairs. It was like someone walking with the phone light on, but as the light came around the door of my bedroom, there was no source for the light. No torch, no orb, nothing. But I can clearly see the reflection from the light on objects in my room. It looked like someone shining a phone to light their way in the darkness. A little bit like when a car headlight shines through the curtain. It travels around the room. But there was nothing there at all. No cars. My partner and daughter still fast asleep. The light came all the way around the room to my side of the bed before going dark. We're pretty sure that there's something or someone in our house. It was built 1960s on an old brickyard, and we have had an Anderson shelter in the garden. Rather, the house is very connected to its age, if that makes any sense. Finally, today, I stood at work, roughly 5 miles from my house. Everyone else was in a completely different part of the building. I hear the same noise as yesterday. The deep rasping. I had chalked that up to being our cat. You know, maybe where he was in the kitchen and it amplified the sound of the cough. But to then hear the exact same noise, miles away from my house, is fully freaked me out. We did used to own a very large dog, American Staff Mastiff. He was put down before my daughter was born, but his collar hangs at the top of the stairs, and the area around it always feels cold. Could it be connected? Anyone got any ideas? Well, friends, it appears we've reached the end of tonight's episode. But don't miss a brand new one every Friday night, and my other weekly uploads every Sunday and Wednesday. I would so appreciate it if you would like this video and talk to me in the comments. Huge shout out to all of my patrons whom I appreciate so very much. TRACY S, TAMARA K, Monica L, ZOEWATT, Shelly B, Donald C, Rat Girl, ALISHA S, ERIN G, NIKKI H, Mr. Revenant, Naz K, Brendan G, Paul T, and Nicholas C. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, I want to thank those who shared their stories, and a big thanks to all of you for listening. Do you have stories like these? I'd love to share them. Send them to me, amandadarkesthour@gmail.com. Or on the Darkest Hour subreddit, The Darkest Hour, YT. Stay spooky.